Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Lieboff, and joining me, as always, are BJ Cunningham and Sam Ingram from Betting Expert. And together, the three of us are going to break down all 10 of the upcoming Premier League matches. We'll take a little traipse around Europe, give out some bets there from BJ, talk a little championship, and then do a three-leg underdog parlay. Unfortunately, one of the teams will be Everton. And then our three favorite bets for the Premier League match week ahead. The international break is in the rear view, and we come back with a bang. BJ, Sunday morning, a North London derby between Spurs and Arsenal. This one at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Spurs are a home underdog, plus 190 on the three-way line. Arsenal plus 130. The draw here is plus 260. My first reaction to this line was that it looked about right. I thought maybe Arsenal looked a little cheap, but not enough for me to get involved. But the way I would think about playing this is I think this could be a little bit of a snoozer given the completely different styles of play that we're going to see. And I just don't think that is going to end up being like there's just not going to be enough room for this thing to open up because of the complete different opposite ends of the spectrum that these two teams approach the game from.
Yeah, so, as an Arsenal fan, it's not a great situation coming into this. If you haven't heard, Declan Rice is suspended and Martin Odegaard is injured for this game, which is, I would say, two of our four most important players on the team. So that's obviously not a good situation coming into this. But I want to kind of go back to the last meeting between these two teams, which was towards the end of the season. If you remember that, Arsenal won the match 3-2 in one of the most beautiful Arsenal fashions possible. They scored 2 goals off of set pieces, got one in a transition break, and then they conceded 2 goals late, one off of a mistake by David Raya, and then obviously a penalty. But what Arsenal has shown defensively, especially in that game, is the versatility they have defensively. You're probably going to see a Thomas Partey, Jorginho midfield would be my guess. So Arsenal's probably going to go for a more defensive approach and looking to play more direct than they typically would be my guess. But Arsenal can defend in a lot of different formations when they're in their own final third. Their high press stifled Spurs in the first meeting, if you remember, at the beginning of the Ange Postecoglou reign at the Tottenham. They smothered them for the first half and completely dominated them. But in the second meeting, they sat back for large stretches in the second half when they had a lead in a 6-2-2. They can play that. They can play a 5-4-1. They can play in their typical base 4-4-2. And they make it very, very difficult for teams to play through, especially Tottenham, whose buildup honestly hasn't been that good to begin the season. They weren't that great against Leicester in the opening week. They capitalized on some mistakes from Everton. And then against Newcastle before the international break, they had 20 shots and just 1.2 expected goals. That's incredibly inefficient. And I think the more worrying thing was Ishak scored the winner in the 78th minute. Tottenham did not attempt a shot after the 78th minute when they were down 2-1. That is incredibly concerning, the fact that they weren't able to play through Newcastle's 4-5-1, which, midway through the point last season, proven to be completely ineffective. Newcastle's playing that formation a little bit more often, but the fact they weren't able to play through that, what makes you think they're going to play through Arsenal's defensive block? So I agree with you, Michael, that I think this does steer more towards a low-scoring type match. Arsenal obviously has a huge advantage on set pieces, and I really hope they score multiple goals again off of them because Tottenham still doesn't look like a very good defensive set piece team. So the other aspect for Tottenham is it looks like Solanke and Richarlison are both going to be out, which means Son is going to have to play as a false 9 up top. That is a little bit worrying, not only playing through a defensive block, but if you go back to that previous meeting, Christian Romero created all of Tottenham's chances, all of their big ones in that game. He got all the headers off of set pieces. He's the one who capitalized on the mistake over Raya. The forwards did absolutely nothing. So for me, the way I'm kind of going on this, it's more of a lean than an actual play, just because I'm projecting a little bit of value on it, is both teams to score no at plus 160. Because Arsenal's obviously going to be missing Odegaard, who is very, very crucial to Saka actually being effective. Odegaard is somebody who shades over to his side and helps create those wide overloads to alleviate the pressure of Saka, who gets double teamed every single time. So Saka is going to be double teamed. It's going to be hard for Arsenal to play through. And Tottenham hasn't been as aggressive out of possession with their pressing. If you watch the Newcastle match, they actually were playing pretty deep and getting a lot of guys back in transition rather than just leaving their 2 center backs on an island. And they actually defended Newcastle's long balls over the top a lot better than they did in the previous meeting. So for me, I would steer more towards both teams to score no. I am watching this Arsenal price, though. They opened it around minus 110. Now we're up to plus 130. If they get into the plus 150 range and I can get a draw no bet at like minus 120, I think that's in range. Rice started every Premier League match for them last season, so it'll be interesting to see what they are like without him. But for me, both teams to score no is where I would head in this match.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the playing some unders as well. I think the draw is in play as well. The 0-0's 14-1 in a Tottenham match. That's just not high enough for me. Sam, anything for you? Spurs and Arsenal.
Yeah, I'll probably just start with a stat I've got in front of me, just to spice things up a bit. Arsenal versus Tottenham has seen both teams score more often than any other fixture in Premier League history, with it landing 43 times, which is funny. BJ's mentioned Odegaard's out, Rice suspended, 2 mainstays of that Arsenal midfield. Calafiori injured for Italy too. Arsenal might be absolutely fine on the weekend. Jorginho's come in alongside Partey, as BJ said. Maybe Kai Havertz dropping back into that midfield area. So that might be fine, but it might not be. So Arsenal, obviously travelling to their fierce North London rivals, a side which will want to turn this into a back and forth and an end-to-end type of encounter. They're going to want Arsenal on the ropes, turning, facing their own goal, which is not easy to do against this Arsenal team. Arsenal will want the complete opposite. They'll want to continue to rely on that solid defensive structure out of possession that they've molded over the last couple of seasons, the setup which has gained plaudits week on week. If Tottenham can win that midfield battle, if they can outmuscle their midfield counterparts there and turn this game into something that Arsenal don't want it to be, then I'm pretty sure Tottenham can find some joy on Sunday, but it won't be easy. So that might be a big if. Tottenham have lost 5 of their last 7 Premier League meetings with Arsenal. So it's going to be tough. Looking at the main markets, I don't really like too much, as I think this is a game that could easily swing either way. Tottenham plus 0.25 Asian handicap I kind of liked because obviously the draw is onside and the home team's onside. I'm coming at it from a bit of a different angle to BJ. Failing that, what I liked in terms of a same game parlay was both teams to score, funnily enough, and a card each in the second half. That comes out at plus 105. So if we think Tottenham have enough to score at home against a semi-depleted, maybe you'd say, Arsenal team, which I think they can do, you would expect Arsenal to score at the other end. And in terms of the cards, Jarrett Gillett is the referee. He's shown both teams a second half card in 3 or 4 matches this season, and he averaged 4.36 cards per 90 last time. And I often find him quite rash in his decision making, and that's not ideal for a North London derby when everything is ramped right up. So I think I like goes. I'm not sure. I think this is more of a lean than anything, and I definitely like cards. So same game parlay, both teams to score and a card each second half, and that was plus 105.
I love it. Okay, that's a Sunday morning kickoff here in the States. Let's flip it to Saturday morning. The Premier League comes back 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. Feel like Man United keeps opening the slate. They are traveling to Southampton, who are plus 330 at home. United odds on, they're minus 130 on the road. The draw here is plus 300. I think the opposite of what my hypothesis for Spurs and Arsenal here. I think this thing could be a bit bonkers, Sam. We could see end-to-end action. We know that United has plenty of flaws. They've been giving up chances for fun for years now. We've talked a lot about Southampton and maybe not having enough of a plan B to have a successful yo-yo season back into the Premier League. So I think that this thing goes a bit crazy. You think maybe it does, but it will take some time to get there.
Potentially, Michael. Yeah, in terms of you saying it may take some time to get there, I've gone with a United win and under 3 first half goals at even money. So I feel a little bit unclean here, siding with United away from home at the prices. I've been so anti-United for so long, not because I've got any kind of agenda against them, but just with Erik ten Hag at the helm, I simply can't buy into this Erik ten Hag's United side. He hasn't shown me any reason to. I'm not sure they can be trusted all three of United's goals conceded in their loss at Liverpool last time out came via errors. That's the first time on record from 2007 where they've committed as many in a single Premier League match. So United with 3, Southampton with 4. They've made the most errors leading to a goal in the Premier League so far this season. So this might be a match stream of errors. But I think I might be more anti-Saints than I am anti-United right now. I don't like the -139 on United. It's a bit skinny for me, but you compare it with under 3 goals in the first half and that gets you to even. So we're on the back of an international break here. Players returning from South America, Africa, Asia, all over Europe. Lots of players involved in lots of games, plenty of traveling. It all takes its toll. To have 11 versus 11 here, firing and ready to go at 100% in the first half, I think it's unlikely. This is, by the way, a 12:30 lunchtime kickoff in England, as Michael said, remember. It's business as usual for the Premier League and Sky Sports. There have been no steps taken to preserve tired legs on Saturday, which is Sky's usual kind of approach to these things over in England. Southampton have lost all 3 games. Last time they were at St. Mary's was against Nottingham Forest side, which you may remember they kind of made a mockery out of Southampton in transition. Every time they turned possession over, Forest were intent on getting bodies forward through the thirds. And in the end, that 1-0 Forest away win might look like a smash and grab going off the result, but it was much, much more convincing than that. 23 shots to Southampton's 5, 2.45 XG to 0.14 XG. If we see that version of Southampton on Saturday, United will win this and maybe at a canter, but it may take a little bit of time to kind of heat up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point. I'm going to revisit it shortly. BJ, anything here, United and Southampton?
Yeah, I like over 3 here at +105. I don't think Russell Martin's going to make it to Christmas if I had to make a prediction right now. It's not working. His style of play is not working, and it's not going to work as we continue on here, especially against Brentford. Brentford is a team that typically just sits back on everybody. Like, yes, they have the ability to press high and do that. They did that to Southampton, and they punished them over and over and over again. They scored 2 goals off of high turnovers, so that's 3 goals now conceded off of high turnovers in 3 matches for Southampton, which is very, very concerning, especially against a United team that is going to press them. And, United, for all their defensive flaws last season, they still were a team that could force high turnovers. They finished top 5 in that category, so they can pick Southampton off here and create a lot of easy transition opportunities. Now, the thing with Southampton's defense is, Sam mentioned the match against Nottingham Forest. They conceded 3 expected goals against Brentford. So now in 11v11, they're conceding 2.2 expected goals per 90 minutes because obviously they had the red card against Newcastle. The glaring thing that for Southampton's defense against Brentford was Brentford was able to receive passes in the half spaces just really whenever they wanted. And if you know anything about United right now, they're typically building up in a 3-1-6, and Xerxes and Fernandes are dropping into those half spaces to receive the ball. So Man United is probably going to have a lot of success playing through the middle of the pitch, which, if you know anything about football right now, is if you can able to play through the middle, you can pull a defense out of position and create a lot of space for chances. So I think United should be able to do that. Now, the thing with United right now is if their press isn't as effective as it has been for a long time, Southampton could be able to play through them, and they could be able to generate some chances in transition here. So I like over 3 at +105, projected 3.5 goals for this match. So I think there's a little bit of value in the over.
Okay, that moves us to Anfield, where Liverpool will be waiting Nottingham Forest as -450 favorites. The Tricky Trees traveling at 11-1. The draw is 6-1. I think through the first 3 matches, if you were to ask most Premier League fans to pick out the team that's kind of exceeded their expectations the most would probably flock to Brighton, maybe Liverpool, and maybe Bournemouth. But Forest is right there with the way that they started the season. It's been a soft schedule, but still, you look at the underlying numbers; they're really good. They're full value for their place in the standings in the top half. They maybe are a little unlucky to only be on 5 points. Expected points points them closer to 6, but they've just been good. And Nuno's got something going here. Maybe not the most exciting outfit to watch But to Sam's point, like this has been a low event Forest team to start. Liverpool obviously wants to do the opposite and play with a little more pizzazz to their game. I do think this thing takes a little bit to get going. Like it's probably, and the odds tell us this is going to be a Liverpool win. But I like the 0-0 in the first half here, and I'm going to create a little bit of a round robin with some first half 0-0s. See if I can't cash a lotto ticket. This one's around plus 310. I think that this takes a long time to get going. Eventually, Liverpool gets the separation, but with the international break, with the way Forest are going to come to Anfield, like their plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D is going to become set. Try to shut down shop from the moment the ball is kicked. I think this points to a slow, sluggish start at Anfield, Sam. So give me the 0-0 first half at plus 310.
Yeah, shocked Michael's going for another 0-0 in some capacity. So the international break factor, yeah, we've mentioned it a few times already. This fixture will be approached in a way where Liverpool attempt to get the win in the least leg-zapping way possible. Control the game, avoid any kind of sustained press. If you bear in mind, AC Milan away for Liverpool midweek 2, so there's a lot to consider for Arne Slot. Do Liverpool take the lead and then keep pushing until 90 minutes is up? I don't think they do. I looked at the minus or Nottingham Forest +2 originally, but I think the chance of a push is quite high. If Forest can get on the score sheet, then that +2 would need Liverpool to score at least 4 goals for that to be a loser. So I didn't really mind that, but I think that the chances of a push are high there. So what might be a better way to play it is the under 3.5 goal line. If you think Liverpool looks to dominate proceedings, limit Forest to very little if they can, and pick them off following control possession, then we might not see 4 goals in the match with tired legs dotted all over the pitch. So if you look at Liverpool's front line, Luis Diaz played 90 minutes against Argentina last night on Tuesday in a 2-1 win. He captained the side for 90 minutes in Peru a few games before that. Mo Salah just played 90 minutes in Egypt before playing 75 minutes in Botswana on Tuesday night. Chris Wood just played as a lone striker in California against Mexico and then in Cincinnati against USA. Taiwo Awoniyi didn't play much football, but he just travelled to Nigeria and then Rwanda on Tuesday. So are these lads going to be right at it as usual? The jury's out for me. So under 3.5 goals at a backable price. I think it was minus 120. Looks pretty good to me.
Cruel and unusual, man. It's crazy. BJ, what do you got for Liverpool and Forest?
I'm with Sam. I like under 3.5 as well. The big thing about Liverpool right now, and here in the States, Sam, they did a wonderful tactical breakdown of what's kind of changed under Liverpool. And essentially out of possession, they're playing against United. They were playing a 4-2-4 where the front four were pressing, and then the 2 holding midfielders were always staying there. Under Klopp, it was all out press all the time. Midfielders were going forward, and they were essentially leaving their center backs on islands. Well, now they're giving themselves a little bit more defensive cover, playing out a little bit more of a mid block, and it's made them so much better of a defensive team. United did end up creating 1.4 expected goals. All of those chances came after Liverpool was already up 2-0. So now we have a situation where I think this match is going to mirror pretty similarly to the Liverpool and Brentford match from match week 2, where Liverpool was able to control the match basically from start to finish. And the biggest thing that they did was they never allowed Brentford to have numerical advantages when they got out in transition. And Nottingham Forest is a team built pretty similarly to that of Brentford. So if you're not allowing teams to beat you in transition, that makes it a lot harder to hit overs, because that's really the only way that teams are able to actually play through Liverpool, right? Or you actually have a chance to score here against Liverpool. So Forest is going to sit deep. We've known them to be a very good defensive block team. Last season, second and final third of box entry conversion rate allowed. They make it very difficult to play through the middle. So in Arne Slot's teams at Feyenoord, and it's become pretty true here at Liverpool as well, is they tend to start pretty slow. Like they tend to feel matches out before they ramp up the pressure and really go for it. So I like under 3.5, only projected 3.1 goals for this match. So yeah, I'm with Sam. I like the under.
Okay. Another title contender, Manchester City is minus 575, hosting Brentford, traveling at 12-1. The draw here is plus 700. I'm going to go to it again. I just think there's just way too many moving parts, too many key players returning from international duty to think, and with the way Brentford is going to want to play, which is going to be relatively low risk, just don't see how this thing really gets off the mat without just an error or just a moment of magic from someone, which obviously, especially City, it's very possible. But at the 0-0 in the first half, you want to pair that with the Liverpool one, create yourself some fun round robin in the morning on Saturday or in the afternoon over there for Sam. It's coming in at plus 275 because I think that this thing also feels like you can slap a 2-0 score line on this and move on with your day, Sam. So I don't really see how this thing really kind of develops into any sort of chaos.
In my mind, I'm thinking exactly what you're thinking, and then I've got the devil on my shoulder telling me, it's City at the Etihad. Like, are you crazy?
Right.
You're going to take unders. But no, I'm going to agree with you. It's just going to be a rinse and repeat job about what I said about Liverpool. City at home, we've seen them coast past that over 3.5 goal line many times. City have won each of their last Premier League games, all by a margin of 2+ goals. So this is what they do. Erling Haaland has 7 goals in the Premier League this season, the most ever by a player in a team's first 3 matches of a campaign in the competition. So there's a few reasons why taking unders here should make you a little nervous. The Premier League, particularly last season, wowed us with the amount of goals scored each and every weekend, and that's why we now have goal lines set so high. The impact of the international break, however, might play its part this weekend again. Under 3.5 goals is the standout for me. Champions League on the horizon, lots of travel, inconvenience, limited time on the training pitch, which is a big factor you don't really consider. And different time zones, adapting body clocks, I could go on. So all of that might just usher us towards 3 or fewer goals. And full disclosure here, by the way, after the first international break last season, both City and Liverpool won 3-1. City away to West Ham and Liverpool on the road at Wolves. But Brentford remain the last side to win away to Manchester City in any competition. So I was wondering if either of you fancied a stab at 11-1 on Brentford.
Well, this is famously the underdog parlay we hit was that last time, that 19-1. Yeah, right before.
Nice. Love it.
It was crazy day. That was a crazy price too. Like, it just shows you how much things have shortened up here. Like that Brentford team was 19-1. Now we're getting 11-12. I'd much rather be betting Brentford at this number, but I just don't. I'm done with. It's tired of betting against City at home. BJ, It's been so long, so I just think this thing snoozes to a 2-0 Erling Haaland brace. City get their 3 points and move into the Champions League.
Yeah, that's kind of where I landed too. Like, typically I would just be all over Brentford, +2, or even if you can get a +2.5 on them, like that's, that'd be our bread and butter here on this podcast. But no, I've landed with Sam. I'm on under 3.5 as well. The thing with City has put up back-to-back matches where they've gotten over 3 expected goals. But let's just be honest, that's against pretty much 2 of the worst defensive teams in the Premier League, in Ipswich and West Ham. And how they were able to do that, if you go back and watch those matches, it's because both of those teams kept trying to build out of the back, and they just turned the ball right over to City and gave them easy opportunities. So Brentford's not going to do that. They're just going to send the ball long over and over and over again. And the Ipswich match is also very interesting from an aspect of once City got a comfortable lead, they just sat on that thing for basically the entire second half. West Ham kept trying to press them, and they kept trying to come at them. So City had no choice, and they had to keep trying to play through them, and they eventually got big chances. But again, the Liverpool-Brentford match is another good carbon copy, I think, of what this match is going to look like. Brentford conceded in the 13th minute against Liverpool in that match. They didn't just immediately come out of their defensive block and just start pressing like crazy and just trying to get back in the match. No, they had a very measured approach. They were sitting deep and they were looking for their transition opportunities. They didn't just, like West Ham or Ipswich, just come out and say, oh crap, we got to get the ball back and we got to try to score. So we know Brentford to be a very good low to block defensive team, even if they haven't shown it over the last few years. But City's going to control this match. Both the meetings last season, they controlled over 70% of the ball. Rodri should be back too, which gives City more control than they've had in these first 3 matches as well. So I'm leaning more towards an under here as well. Only projected 2.9 goals for this match. So another sluggish one. And yeah, it's going to be a boring weekend of unders, but you know what? Let's hope they all hit.
Yeah, Premier League unders. That's what you want to be doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Brighton and Ipswich up next. Not much for me here, Sam. You're the only one with any sort of conviction on this one. Brighton minus 270, Ipswich 7-1 on the road, and the draw is plus 425. Ipswich was able to get off the mark, at least in their last match against Fulham. Brighton obviously been quite impressive under Hertzler. Anything for you worth going to the window for?
Yeah, I like goals. This is more of a lean, so I'll be quick. Over 2.5 goals and both teams to score at plus 110. That was a standout for me if I was going to have a play on something. The 5.28 XG mustered by Brighton is the third highest total after 3 matches. Following Hertzler's arrival down on the south coast, Ipswich have conceded 6.94 XGA, which is a Premier League high, but they've played City and Liverpool, so it's kind of hard to gauge where they are at either end. And United are the only side to play at the Amex in the league this season so far, and they registered 1.43 XG, and they caused Brighton problems. And Brighton have actually lost just one of their last 13 Premier League home games against promoted sides. So this is a spot where they do perform well. So this pick might hinge on the away side turning up and putting in a real good account of themselves. And if Ipswich score here, which I think they can, then I love the over 2.5 goals and both teams to score at plus 110. I'm very much behind this Ipswich side being full of goals at either end. I've said it on a few podcasts already, so I'm going to keep putting these prices up on the podcast whilst I still can, whilst they're still there. And hopefully Ipswich can kind of get into their scoring rhythm. So I didn't mind that at plus 110.
Okay, that brings us to Crystal Palace and Leicester City. Palace odds on minus 160 at home. Leicester City traveling to Selhurst Park as a plus 425 underdog. The draw here is plus 310 BJ. We obviously pretty high in Palace coming in. Not been a great start. They're struggling to create, which I didn't think was going to be an issue with they're averaging just around 1 XG per game. We're pretty fortunate to get a point out of that Chelsea match. That came on the heels of losses to Brentford and West Ham. So do you think that there's a chance we see Leicester kind of pip one here, or is this a good buy low spot on the Eagles?
Yeah, you know, I'm finding it very interesting. This year more than ever with new managers coming into a side who has a completely different tactical identity than what they've been playing, and how we're not just seeing them completely veer the other way towards the manager's tactics, but like slowly getting there. And I think Leicester kind of fits that mold right now. You know, if you've watched Leicester, obviously in the championship last season, they were one of the more possession dominant teams, always wanting to build out of the back, inverted fullbacks, modern style under Maresca. And they're still kind of trying to do that in the Premier League. And, I think just because Steve Cooper probably feels he doesn't have a side that can just, play 3-5-2, let's send the ball long over and over and over again and actually be successful. But it's just not working. They're not creating enough right now. And if you've watched them both against Fulham and now against Aston Villa, two teams that play passive mid-blocks, which is exactly what Crystal Palace plays, they have been able to create nothing. And I'm sorry, but a front two of Jordan Ayew and Jamie Vardy is not going to get it done in the Premier League, especially against good defensive teams, which Crystal Palace is. But, out of possession, Leicester is a spitting image of Steve Cooper's Nottingham Forest. It's 5-3-2 low block. It's very compact to reduce that space in between the lines, which is what you have to do against Palace, who wants to play through the middle. And so far through 3 matches, Leicester from open play situations haven't been bad. You'll see that they've created, they've allowed a little bit over 4 expected goals. 1.9 of that has come off of set pieces. So they're really struggling in that aspect. Palace has traditionally never been a good set piece team. So I think this is a tad bit of a stalemate here. Palace has been pretty inefficient offensively. They have the second lowest XG per shot so far in the Premier League. It's just kind of, they do a good job getting to the final third, and then they just kind of settle for a lot of shots in and around outside the 18-yard box. So I like both teams to score no at even money. Projected this at minus 139. Palace 50% of their shots, but not from outside the box. So I think that it's a little bit of a low price, and I'd rather take the both teams to score no to protect myself potentially against a Palace 3-0 win.
Anything for you here, Sam?
Yeah, my initial thought, memory really, was that Jamie Vardy Eagle celebration in front of the Palace fans a few years ago after scoring. I am brilliant from him. Just loves winding up opposition fans. But I think of that every time I see Palace versus Leicester. Brilliant. But yeah, you're not going to find Palace at -167 very often. That's really quite off-putting for me. Even if being anti-Leicester feels like the right way to go about things at the start of the season. But you can pair Palace win and under 4.5 goals, and that gets us to -110. And I don't really mind that. I think that is how I'd play this. If taking prices out of the equation, I'm definitely keen to get behind Palace at home against this Leicester City side. Palace have won 9 Premier League games against Leicester. That's more wins than against any other side they've come up against in the competition. So somewhat of a bogey team maybe. So to be able to side with that notion that this might be a low scoring weekend, Palace and under 4.5 goes near even. So that's what I'm going to hang my hat on. I think they've played just one home game so far, lost 2-0 against West Ham in a pretty even affair overall. Glasner will be keen to kickstart the season here against what is on paper inferior opposition. And at the back end of last season, if you cast your mind back, Glasner signed off the campaign with 4 home wins in a row, including convincing wins against Newcastle United, 5-0 against Aston Villa. So more of the same on Saturday if they can get back into that kind of rhythm at home. And we're going to see why the bookmakers have them down as -167 shots. So for me, Palace and under 4.5 goals at home at -110.
That brings us to Craven Cottage, where Fulham are +145, slight home favorites against West Ham, traveling +185. The draw here is +250. BJ, both these teams are off to similar starts, 7 points between the two of them. I think that they're kind of trending towards where we'd see them, in that mid-table, slightly, 10th to 15th. That's where they're looking right now, but they go about things very differently. West Ham has been very high event under their new manager. Meanwhile, it's been a pretty low event on the other side with 6 goals from Fulham's matches combined, 3-4, 3 against, and an expected goals number that's just right around there. It's saying it's pretty appropriate. So this clash of styles too. How do you see this one ending up?
I think the price is about right here. What I think is utterly shocking is how bad West Ham continues to be defensively. Going into the season, I made a lot of adjustments to West Ham because obviously they were very busy and made a lot of great moves in the transfer market. But I also thought that they just could not continue to be as bad as they were defensively under David Moyes. And they have. They have allowed the most expected goals of anybody. They have conceded 9 fast break shots. That's 2 more than any other team in the Premier League. That is particularly concerning given the situation that they're in right now, because they're going to place a Fulham team that primarily plays at their best in transition. So for me, I think the price is about right. For this did open at just like a straight pick 'em. And I think when we got off the podcast last time, I told you guys, I was like, I think that price is a little short on Fulham, but I never ended up playing it because I'm a coward. And now we're in this zone where I think that the price is about right. Fulham as well. Boy, they have no ball stopping in the middle of the pitch. Like, they really, really miss Paulinho. So, you could see goals in this one, a little bit more back and forth potentially. But for me, I think the price is about right. So I'm just going to pass.
All right, and that brings us to the headliner, baby, at Villa Park. -210 on Aston Villa against Everton. The Toffees traveling +550. The draw here is +340. The less we say about Everton's last time out, the better. So we'll just pretend that.
What happened, by the way? I for those who
Just
maybe didn't see the match, what happened, Michael?
Just a run-of-the-mill loss. You lose games. Yeah. Sometimes you lose matches.
Yeah.
It's
not how you lose.
Matches.
It's just it's 0 points. It's no different than losing 3-0 away to City. No different.
Yeah, exactly. Flush it. Move on. Get ready for Aston Villa. I will say right before that weekend, we said like Everton value side, but you have to be pretty brave soul to bet them in that match against Bournemouth. I think that was spot on, right? Like, they were up 2-0, and you if you were betting Everton, you're feeling pretty good, and then you realize, oh no, you did have to be a brave soul, because the last 10 minutes of that match are harrowing and something you won't forget as a punter for the rest of your life. But in betting, it's all about buying low, and it's really hard to buy at a lower spot than on a team that's 0-3, just blew a historic lead in the Premier League, a -8 goal difference. But there are some things percolating under the system, under the surface, BJ, that point to Everton being a little bit better than their record.
Yep.
At least I hope so.
Yeah.
So it's got to be the Toffees here. Like,
yeah, I'll be on the Toffees money line. But for those who maybe don't want to do that, I wouldn't blame you. And I'm sure people are gonna have to stop listening to this podcast because we just come on every week and say, oh, Everton's the value side. But I actually kind of like both teams to score -120. It's kind of a low price for me here. What was utterly shocking, Michael, though, going back, rewatching, looking at all of the statistics from the match, Everton allowed 8 crosses to be completed into their penalty area. For context, everybody out there, teams typically concede about 2 crosses per 90 into their penalty area. So 8 is utterly disgraceful. And if you watch it, I think 5 or 6 of them were in the final 10 minutes. So I don't know what happened mainly from Everton. I'll talk about it more when we talk about Bournemouth and Chelsea, what I think Bournemouth did to actually get to those type of opportunities. But Unai Emery is a great tactician, and he will definitely try to overload the wide areas, and he will definitely try to send in crosses. And kind of I don't want to say the blueprint is out. It's on Everton's defense. I think that Dyche just needs to figure a few things out. But, Everton forever was a high to mid block team that really was good at denying space through the middle. Well, now teams are trying to overload wide areas. They're stretching Everton's defensive block, and they're creating space in the middle. Brighton showed that in match week 1, and teams are kind of copying that over and over again. So I think the loss of Onana is probably key in that aspect because he was so good at playing a bunch of different roles there. So we'll see. And also, I just think Everton needs Braithwaite back, really, really badly. Michael Keane just can't do it at this point, and Braithwaite is just so much better than him. So, from a Villa perspective, though, last season, when we talk about Everton, we always got to talk about set pieces, and they scored one off of a set piece against Bournemouth. Villa was dead last in XG per set piece allowed last season. They've been much better through 3 matches this season, but they've only had 4 set pieces essentially against them so far. Everton, if they get behind, they will still press, and they are still an effective pressing team out of their high block. They were top 5 in high turnovers last season. They did look a little more dangerous in transition against Bournemouth here for, a Villa side that's going to build out of the back and, leave themselves a tad vulnerable to maybe get turned over for those easy transition opportunities. I think both teams to score at -120 is a tad low here. So I like that. And of course, here's the thing. Is Villa a better team than Everton? Of course they are. But every underlying metric tells you last season that Villa drastically overperformed and Everton drastically underperformed. And actually, they're a lot closer than these odds would suggest. This is the same. This is getting close to the same price as Tottenham versus Everton as well. So, if you believe Aston Villa is a better team than Tottenham right now, then okay, sure, go ahead. But for me, I'll be on the Everton money line. It's just going to be, Michael, it's going to be satisfying when we cash one of these. It might take until match week 30 to get one, but we're going to get there eventually, one of these big ones.
If you are looking for another way in, Amadou Onana, I think you can get it 6.5 score.
No.
Ross Barkley, who I don't think he's played a lick yet this year. He's up there.
Well,
double
and also
score.
Look ahead. Aston Villa's got Champions League on Tuesday. Got to travel to Switzerland.
Amen. I know. Yep, this is it, Sam. This is the spot. Everton off the mark here.
I don't think Everton's players played too much on international duty this week. There's that.
I am not taking the Everton money line. I know you've got this weird thing on the pod where you kind of flirt with Everton here and there, but I'm not quite at that level.
We're not flirting. We are married.
No, this is a toxic relationship.
Toxic.
But I tell you what, that October 2023 or 2023 was the height of the relationship when they looked like they were going to win the league. So.
Mm-hmm. And life's just been downhill ever since for Everton fans and Michael.
And they will get a points
They've won
deduction
one league
too.
match since. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they will get a points deduction. Their lawyers won't be able to find a loophole like Leicester did. They will get a points deduction.
It's gonna be.
Can you guess the last Everton player to score a league goal at Villa Park? 2016.
Kevin Morales,
No, close.
That's a good poll.
Leon Osman.
Romelu
Terry?
Lukaku.
Oh wow.
March 2016. Everton have scored 1 goal against Aston Villa in their previous 7 league meetings.
They're due.
Villa are really short, minus 200. Like BJ said, first Champions League game in only a few days after this fixture, young boys in Switzerland. Will that affect the lineup or the tempo here, especially in the closing stages? I'm not sure. Maybe. Plenty of positives to take from the game against Bournemouth for Everton. It's fair to say they were the better team, definitely, until the last, I don't know, 6 minutes, maybe to the last 20 minutes or so. But regardless, I'm not interested in backing them, to be honest. I'm much more comfortable with thinking this matchup might be as fiery as it usually is. Craig Pawson is in charge as the ref. That's a box ticked. Games can run away from him, and he's happy to dish out bookings when that happens. So I forgot to tell you my actual bet. It's over 4.5 Asian cards at minus 110. So I think I like bookings here. He averaged, Craig Pawson, 4.65 cards per 90 in all competitions last season. And are desperate for a win, desperate for a point, need points badly. That desperation is handy for a bookings-based bet. Rock bottom of the Premier League. They're going to scrap to try and leave Villa Park with something. Either side possesses the personnel that will get stuck in. If you think of Tarkowski, Young, Coleman, Onana against his old club, John McGinn. Villa have received the second most yellow cards in the league this season with 8. Everton have only received 3 somehow, so perhaps that's why the card prices are palatable. Everton averaged 2.16 cards per 90 last term and nearly identical in the campaign before that, whereas Villa, they're consistently good performers in terms of receiving cards. So I've ended up on the Asian cards line over 4.5 at minus 110. I thought that may have been over 5.5, but I can see a really scrappy, kind of fiery game here where both sides maybe fancy taking something from Villa Park. So yeah, hoping for an energetic one on the weekend.
Yeah, you should get there. As you noted, like Onana isn't the only one with ties to both clubs here. Like it's a weird how many players in this matchup have played for both. Ashley Young, Onana, Ross Barkley if he gets in, Tim or William for Everton. You go down the list, Ghana. It's pretty crazy between these two. So it could be just one of those weird ones where guys are just flying in. And Lucas Digne, of course. Okay, that's a 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. A rare Saturday 3 p.m. Eastern time kickoff in the States, 8 p.m. prime time under the lights. Bournemouth and Chelsea. Bournemouth plus 220, Chelsea plus 105. The draw is plus 285. We've been drumming on about this Bournemouth team for preseason through the first 3 weeks. They've delivered. Unfortunately, that continued 2 weeks ago at Goodison Park, but now they're plus 220 at home to a Chelsea side that I think is still gettable, despite I think looking better than maybe we were prepared to give them credit for before the season. But I still think this price in Bournemouth at home is playable, Sam. So I'll be on Andoni Iraola, and the revolution continues.
Yes, quickly, by the way, 8 p.m. kickoff on a Saturday after the international break. That's just cruel. Like Sky Sports, honestly, they've got blood on their hands. As a fan as well, imagine it's not too big of a trip, but Chelsea fans heading to Bournemouth at that late, they definitely won't get the last train. So yeah, nightmare. Anyway, love Bournemouth. Big fan. Obviously, we're massively hot on them in our preview show. The plus 0.5 Asian handicap was very much on my shortlist for the show this week. But the more I thought about it, post-international break, where Bournemouth's best players, Semenyo, Ouattara, Kluivert, all on international duty, and Chelsea, with their abundance of talent, obviously had many players away too, but just like the depth in their ranks, which is well known, they now possess the ability to make a load of changes and have the freshest 11 in the Premier League post-international break, you'd have to say, if they really wanted. So It's made me back off the home side a little bit, in all honesty. I'm not as bullish on them as I was before I really delved into this and had a think about it. Pre-international break, yeah, Bournemouth's comeback win over Everton. We touched on it briefly there. To be 2-0 down away from home and then score in the 87th, 92nd and 96th minute, it takes real character, determination to get something like that over the line in the Premier League. They can be gritty and they have an abundance of fight when they really want to, just like Iraola's Rayo Vallecano, who certainly had that edge to them. Bournemouth are unbeaten in all three of the Premier League games so far this season. They've never gone full without defeat from the start of the Premier League campaign, actually. And I'm just a little bit concerned about Chelsea's ability to rotate. So, yeah, I like the price. I like the line. I'm just a little bit cautious because if there's a scenario where Chelsea's bloated squad comes in handy for Maresca, it's right now. But Bournemouth, somewhat tentatively on the Asian line for me, plus 0.5.
BJ?
I'll be on Bournemouth here. I think that the situation is interesting, right? Because Bournemouth, if you look through their first three matches, the style of teams they've played have been pretty much the most direct teams in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest, Everton, and Newcastle. Now they finally get to deploy Iraola's high press, which gave them this massive amount of success over the second half of the season. And, the press is really designed to pin teams to one side of the pitch. And if you know anything about Maresca, he likes short passes to play through teams' pressure. This will be his first big test in doing that as the Chelsea manager. City didn't really press them high that much. They faced a bad press in Wolves, and then they obviously faced Crystal Palace, who was playing a 5-3-2 mid-block for most of the match. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of how Chelsea plays. I'll say this to my dying breath, is that Chelsea, as structured right now, is a way better transition team than a team that tries to build out of the back. And you have seen that over and over and over again. That's why they got so good under Pochettino towards the end of last season. If they try to continue to build out of the back here, I think that Bournemouth is going to cause them a lot of problems, especially with it being on the South Coast. The other aspect for Bournemouth is they are a very dangerous transition team. And what they were kind of doing, Michael, towards the end of the match against Everton is they kept trying to play through the middle, and Everton was doing a good job at denying them and playing through there. They continued to have wide overloads over and over again, but, it's obviously a scary proposition, right, to try and beat Everton with crosses, which with how good they are in the air. But it got to the point where they were down 2-0, and they had all these wide overloads, and they were just like, well, I guess we just got to start sending crosses because we have no other route to go, and it worked. So when they go out in transition, they like to get their fullbacks high. They like to get those 2v1s against the opposing fullback, and they're really successful at doing that. Chelsea is most likely going to be without Gusto. Reece James is still injured, so they don't have really a true right back on their roster right now, which if you're going to play against Bournemouth's press, you're going to have to do a lot of switch balls to the other side of the pitch. So if you don't have one of your best fullbacks on one side, Bournemouth's probably going to continue to try to pin you into that side and force that right back to actually make, whoever's going to be playing there to actually, make that type of pass. So I like Bournemouth here. I think this is a good spot for them at home to deploy their high press and cause Chelsea a lot of problems. So I like the value on them at plus 105. And one more thing, final 13 matches at home for Bournemouth last season. They obviously had the difficult stretch to begin. They had a plus 9.1 expected goal differential. They only lost 3 matches, which was to Liverpool, City, and then the second to last match of the season against Brentford. They are very, very good. They've been very, very good at home under Iraola. So I like them plus a half.
Okay. Wolverhampton and Newcastle now to wrap up the Premier League match week. Wolves are plus 225 at the Molineux. Newcastle plus 110. The draw here is plus 265. BJ feels a little trappy, but I like the price on Newcastle even on the road
I
here.
do too.
I think they're just miles better than Wolverhampton. Should start getting healthier. We both were kind of predicting an ascent from Newcastle, challenging at least top 4. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing them just kind of go on a run starting pretty soon here. So I like Newcastle, anything better than even money. What about you?
This line's bothering me a lot, Michael, and I'll tell you why. So Chelsea just went to Wolves in match week 2. They were laying minus 130, and they hammered them 6-2. I know what the final XG was, but if you watch the match, Chelsea hammered them. And now we're getting Newcastle at plus 110 when every single expected metric would tell you that last season and even coming into this season that they're pretty much on par, or maybe even better than Chelsea right now. So why are we getting a 40-cent discount on a team that's even from what Chelsea did after what Chelsea did with Wolves? I have a lot of respect for Gary O'Neill. I think he's a great tactician. I think he's very good. He's been put into a difficult situation and he's made the most of it. From January 1st on last season, Wolves had the worst non-penalty expected goal differential in the Premier League. Worse than Luton Town, worse than Sheffield, worse than Burnley. They drastically overperformed defensively because they're a good box defending team and Jose Sa drastically overperformed as a keeper. You're starting to see some regression from him, especially in that match against Chelsea. Newcastle hammered Wolves in both meetings. They drew 2-2 at the Molineux last season, but they created well over two expected goals. They were constantly finding space in through the middle and pulling Wolves' defensive block out of position. They just conceded a couple goals late. And that was also when Newcastle was going through their very difficult run of injuries and Champions League fixture pileup. And then once we got towards the end of last season, Newcastle hammered them 3-0 at St. James Park. So for me, I think this Wolves team has shown that they are definitely worse than they were last season with no Max Kilman, no Pedro Neto. I like the price on Newcastle. I think plus 110 is short. I had them projected closer to minus 120, which is where I think this line should be priced if we believe Newcastle is an even team with Chelsea, which I believe they are. So I like Newcastle plus 110.
Sam, have we convinced you? Pulling you over the line here?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. You kind of summed it up for me when you said that this is real trappy, and I only think that because, like, from the eye test anyway, like I think Newcastle have been second best in maybe all of their games. Maybe that's harsh. Maybe 2 out of 3. Sat on 2 wins, so yeah, fair enough. Southampton, somehow they've got a win there with 10 men on the opening day. Spurs, it was a really good win. Not sure how much they deserved it, and a draw in Bournemouth where Ouattara scored with his shoulder in the last minute. So maybe they didn't quite deserve that. I'm just not sure about what I'm seeing, but yeah, like I said, fair play, 2 wins on the board, decent start. They may well run out comfortable winners here, but I'm just not sold on them right now. So that, yeah, I'll pass on this one.
Yeah, I think like injuries and suspensions, it's just been a weird start for them. So I'm hoping that
Schär will be back here, so there's no makeshift back line here. You get Burn and Schär as your center back pairing. Other than that, Newcastle's pretty healthy. So
yeah, I think I'm excited to see what they look like now that they're settled. All right, let's go through Europe real quick. BJ, what do you got?
Yeah, let's go. Bundesliga, Bayern Munich -2 against Holstein Kiel. Holstein Kiel looks to be bad, for lack of a better term. 3.5 expected goals conceded to Hoffenheim in opening weekend. Had a better performance against Wolfsburg in match week 2. But this team was terrible in the second division last season. They had a plus 0.18 expected goal differential per 90 minutes. For those who don't know, the barrier to entry in Germany since about 2015, you see your expected goal differential drop by about a full goal. So Bayern last season was plus 1.5 XG differential per 90 in the Bundesliga. They've only gotten better in terms of the additions that they've gotten this summer, signing Paulinho and Olise. So from a mathematical standpoint, if you go through all the math and give Holstein Kiel home field advantage, you get to a line about -2. But then you have to factor in the fact that Bayern is so much more talented than them. So getting Bayern -2 at even money, it's not really a look at spot. They got Dinamo Zagreb at home in the Champions League, so it's not really like a rest guys for that match. So I like Bayern -2. Serie A, I like Torino -120 at home against Lecce. Kind of a short price here. Torino was really good last season. They just got done in by penalties. Like they actually had an even expected goal differential, but they conceded 7 penalties and only got 2 for themselves. So they actually had a +8 non-penalty expected goal differential. Lecce was one of the worst defensive teams. They're going to be without one of their best wingers who got a red card in the last match against Cagliari. So I think -120 is short on Torino. And then La Liga, we go to the island, Mallorca, draw no bet, -125 against Villarreal. Villarreal is getting, I think, vastly overvalued in the market, considering what they were last season. They were one of the worst defensive teams in Spain. And Sorloth, who scored 23 goals, overperformed his expected goals by 10 goals. And now they don't really have a striker to replace him. Papa Gay is also suspended for this match, who picked up a red card against Valencia, so they're out one of their best midfielders. And Mallorca is always good on the island. I mean, they actually outplayed Real Madrid for large stretches to open up the weekend. They've always had a positive expected goal differential at home, dating back to when they actually got promoted in La Liga. So good spot here for Mallorca on the island. Like them draw no bet at -125.
Okay. Weird stuff happens on the island.
It
happens
does.
at all the islands, whether it's Hawaii, Long Island, wherever you go. All right, let's move to the championship then. Sam, what do you got? And you're going against Plymouth again? Come on.
2 weeks on the bounce, yeah, going against my hometown club, which is actually pretty depressing. But I felt like therapy last week, and I kind of liked it, so I'm back for round 2. Argyle were humbled 4-0 away to Sheffield Wednesday to open the season. That Wednesday team have gone on to lose their next 3 games, 4-0 against Sunderland, 2-0 and 3-0. They haven't scored a goal. So that result is looking really bad. We've managed 2 points since. One was against a depleted Hull side, desperate for reinforcements. And the other, we had 10 men, and QPR should have dealt with us without a question. They had their fair share of chances. So on Saturday, we play Sunderland. Sunderland travels to Home Park down in Devon, and there should be a gulf in class, form, and performance. Argyle are reliant on creating opportunities through Morgan Whittaker on the right, Ibrahim Sissoko on the left, and there's nothing going through the middle at all to link the final third to those in behind the front men. So there is a creative void at the minute. Rami El Hajj was brought on deadline day with that in mind, so we'll see if he starts here, and we'll see just what level he's at. Argyle recorded 1.83 XG in their opening 4 games. That's the worst in forward areas in the league out of 24 teams. They've conceded 9.49 XGA, which is also the worst in the division. And if you look at Sunderland, they're top of the league after 4 games, which must feel lovely. 100% record, conceded just 1 goal. They've registered 6.18 expected goals and have scored the most goals in the league along the way, becoming the first team to reach double figures with 10. So all in all, at a backable price, the -120 on Sunderland to have just a little bit more than Argyle in forward areas especially, I think it looks a good way into this if you're a neutral.
Does Wayne Rooney make it to Christmas, Sam?
I don't know. I'm not sure. To be fair, there are signs that it's not all bad and the squad is evolving and the performances are coming. So very early days. To answer your question, I'm not sure.
Okay. For me, I like our old buddies Luton Town, drawing a bet at Millwall this weekend. Luton Town has been very unfortunate to be 23rd in the championship table right now, +2 expected goal differential through 4 matches, but they have not won a match. And if you go look through Luton's team, it's essentially the same team that was in the Premier League last season, minus Ross Barkley and one other player, Agbona, excuse me. So it's pretty much the same Luton Town squad that, we know for a fact can generate some chances in transition here. And Millwall has improved under Neil Harris. They had a good stretch run towards the end of last season, but they did overperform in terms of expected goals. They've had a good start to the beginning of the season here. I think with how much Luton Town has underperformed, I think their squad is more talented than Millwall's. So I think draw no bet at even money is a decent price on Luton Town.
Okay. Let's transition to the 3-leg underdog parlay. 2 weeks ago, 3 legs, 3 draws for us. So I think all 3 were 1-1 too. So knocking on the door. This one comes out at 61-1. BJ, you can get us started.
Bournemouth +260 at home against Chelsea. I think this is a really good spot for Bournemouth to unleash their high press that had them so successful last season. They've played 3 of the most direct teams in the Premier League so far: Nottingham Forest, Everton, and Newcastle. Chelsea's going to try to build out of the back with a lot of short passes, and this is Maresca's first big test against a really, really good high pressing team. So it's Bournemouth was really good towards the end of last season. Their last 13 matches at home, they've only lost 3 of them. They have a +9 expected goal differential. So good spot here for Bournemouth at home, and I like them at +260.
All right, I'll crash us with Everton. They're +550 against Aston Villa. It was a nightmare against Bournemouth. Well, but before it was a nightmare. It was all looking pretty good against a decent Bournemouth side. So if you just pretend those last 6 minutes didn't happen, you'd be pretty encouraged with Everton here, and we wouldn't be getting this price. So as BJ noted before, I don't think that the gap is this wide between these clubs. I think that Everton should be better than their record, and it's been a lot of just shooting itself in the foot. So hopefully they can clean some of that up and get us a big price home here, Sam.
Tottenham plus 200. To be able to get this Tottenham side on board at home in the underdog category is something I'm very much on board with. A lot needs to swing their way to take all 3 points, of course. Most notably, the lads coming in to replace Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard need to ensure that that transition is seamless. 2 mainstays in the Arsenal team, in a very impressive Arsenal team, but the magnitude of the North London derby, a weakened away side, that might just be the required recipe for Arsenal to falter on the road. Arteta's men are unbeaten in 10 away games, winning 9, so this will be tough for the hosts, but certainly not impossible. And as you might be able to tell, I'm not overly sold myself because it was slim pickings this week, so I apologize.
Yeah, it was slim pickings. And I said 61-1. It actually comes out at 69-1. This 3-leg parlay.
I'm on record. I hope this loses. I'm on record.
All right, let's move on to best bets for match week 4 of the Premier League season. Sam, you can kick us off here.
Yes, gone for Palace and under 4.5 goals. I'm anti-Leicester at present, and I think Crystal Palace at home should be a tough nut to crack for the visitors here. The draw at Chelsea will give this Palace squad a bit of belief that they can kickstart their season on the weekend. The bookmakers certainly think they will, priced at minus 167 for a home win, and we can drag that price all the way up to minus 110 with the inclusion of under 4.5 goals, which I really like. In what was a high-scoring campaign in the Premier League last season, the weekend after the first international break of the season, only 5 games went over 2.5 goals, and not 1 game went over 4.5 goals, and I would expect similar this time around.
Okay, I'm going to go Newcastle. I think that this team is about to start trending in the right direction now that they're settled, getting healthy. As weird start to the season, but they were able to put 6 points on the board despite some stuff going against them, or 2 wins on the board despite stuff going against them. I think they overmatch Wolves here, even on the road. So getting anything better than even money on Newcastle is my favorite bet for this match week, BJ.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Liverpool. Nottingham Forest under 3.5 goals at minus 125. You know, Liverpool looks a lot different under Arne Slot than they did Jurgen Klopp. They're valuing more control rather than just reckless abandonment and trying to play direct. They're really defensively making sure that they don't get beat in transition. You know, constantly having 5 guys back, whereas under Klopp, both of the midfielders were always trying to counterpress to win the ball to create those easy transition opportunities. Now, if you look at the match them they played against Brentford, which is a pretty good carbon copy of what this match is going to look like, they never let Brentford have numerical advantages when they got their transition breaks. And that's what Nottingham Forest is going to do. They're going to sit deep and they're going to try to break and counter from that deep low block. But Nottingham Forest is a very capable defensive team. So far, they're allowing the lowest XG per shot in the Premier League. Last season, they were second best in terms of final third to box entry conversion rate allowed. So I think they'll do they'll make it very difficult on Liverpool to actually get in and create those high quality chances. But you know, after an international break with a lot of tired legs, guys traveling in from all over the world, I think 3.5 is a little too high here. So I like under 3.5 minus 120.
Perfect. All right, that does it for us this Match Week 4 podcast. We'll be back on Monday morning to look ahead to the Champions League, and then again on Thursday morning to look ahead to Match Week 5. But until then, best of luck with all your bets. Hopefully, next time we talk to you, we're all sitting with a little bit more cash in our pockets thanks to that 3-leg parlay.